Hey, tree huggers.
Welcome back, everyone. We have with us today a very special guest, one of our own occupational therapists at Family Tree Therapies, and it is Jessica Crafton.
Hello.
She's not only an occupational therapist with Family Tree, but she's also a mom. And she's going to talk with us today to those moms who are, and moms and dads who are interested in seeking out orthotropic services, and talk about maybe a little bit of what she saw early on. And then the changes that she's seen. So this is really, we're going to document, we call her JC, so I might in and out call her that, but we're going to document Jessica's journey as a mom and as a therapist as to what she saw, and then the changes that she's seen over this few years of treatment for Nora. So I'll let Jessica get started with introducing her daughter, Nora, and a few of the things that started to concern her early on that made her think maybe she needed some early intervention.
Nora is, now she's 4, almost 5. She'll be 5 at the end of April. But the journey for her started, she did participate in tummy time. She didn't absolutely love it. She was a happy sitter. She sat for a long time. She didn't start to transition out of sitting until like 10, 11 months. And just started to kind of butt scoot versus crawl. And as an OT, I thought she should be crawling. And I should have trusted my mom gut when my pediatrician told me crawling's not that important, it's fine.
And that is a whole other subject that we can talk about,
yes,
especially with some of the new CDC guidelines and
yes,
why as therapists we believe that to be important. But I like how you're linking that with just a little minor red flag of what you saw with Nora that kind of raised your radar.
Right. And I thought, like she's there's a reason that kids are supposed to crawl. And at the time I worked with adults and I didn't quite know exactly why. And now learning and watching her mobility and behaviors versus my son, who was a fantastic crawler, still crawls, I can really see why we need to crawl. And she also had a passy for 2 years. I know. So
this is a no judgment zone, JC.
Correct.
At the time it was, you know, kids have passies, whatever. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Lots of my friends' kids had passies, look at their teeth, they're fine, that kind of thing. She wasn't really ever one of those kids that had to have it. She never like walked around with it in her mouth. She liked it when she was sleeping. But then when she was 3, I noticed when we would lay her down to sleep, we would read books to her and she'd fall asleep and she'd snore. And I thought, I don't feel like she's supposed to snore. And so then I talked to Stacy, and Stacy and I did, we just had like lunch together over Zoom. And so she had Nora do some swallowing for her, some drinking. I think she ate, I don't remember, carrots or something. And Stacy said that she saw some maybe reverse swallow stuff going on, that her posture, she had, I don't know, what's the term for the
jaw to be retruded? Is that
retruded? Is that okay? Yep. And
retruded just means that it looks, your chin looks like it's a little bit further back than it should, and your top jaw, your maxilla, looks a little bit overdeveloped. It's how it looks like from the side.
Correct. Yes, thank you. Yep. And that's, so Stacy pointed out those things, and suggested that we first figure out the airway to see if there's something obstructing her nasal passages to cause her to snore. So she gave me referral for ENT and also potentially an allergist, depending on what the ENT said. And also Dr. O'Rourke, depending on, again, what the ENT said.
And Dr. O'Rourke is?
Dr. O'Rourke is the dentist who specializes in the treatment of orthotropics.
Okay, and so people who are listening, orthotropics is a specialty that helps with guiding facial growth.
So when When you notice, when you would read to Nora and you would notice that, excuse me, that she would kind of fall asleep and snore, did you see any other sleep disturbances or any other regulatory kind of things that we're now linking with some challenges with our with an airway?
Yes. So a lot of times she falls asleep kind of with her head back and her mouth open.
Mhm.
And I would find that when she didn't sleep well, she would be cranky in the morning and just have some really big behaviors. Kind of had to wake her up sometimes for school, which normally kids are up and ready to go and they're happy. And noticed that sleeping posture with her neck resting back.
Okay.
Mhm. And her mouth open. And when you say snoring, would you say it was like really loud and intrusive, or was it just like her mouth was slightly open? Because snoring can be a lot of different things.
Yes, nothing like through the door kind of snoring. So yeah, a little bit of like lip parting, a little bit of snoring. But like kept an eye on it and thought, wow, this is not just a stuffy nose, or this is not just allergy season. Kind of
Right.
stuff.
Because sometimes parents will think that either they're stuffy all the time, or they'll talk about allergy season, or they'll just say, oh, they're just getting over a cold. They're just a little bit congested. But
Right.
any mouth breathing consistently is atypical.
Yes.
Mhm.
Which now I'm learning, but back then I
Sure.
didn't know. My pediatrician, I had to insist on the referral.
The ENT.
Yes,
Okay.
I had
You
to
had to
insist on
insist
the
on the ENT referral.
correct.
Right. It is challenging to find ENTs who understand the importance of nasal breathing. So
Mhm.
often I think that's a really important note to parents, is that you may have to insist on that referral based on what you saw.
And what did you learn at the ENT?
So he looked in her throat and said her tonsils were a bit enlarged. There's like a tonsil scale. Stacy, I'm sure you know what that is.
It's called the Mallampati score.
Yeah, so they were just slightly enlarged. He said nothing of concern. And so he wasn't concerned that her adenoids were enlarged. He said he was not concerned about that. And he recommended I start her on an antibiotic because he said she had a chronic adenoid infection. So he said it was quite strong and she was to take it for 2 weeks. And then she was to take Flonase daily.
Okay.
So, and wait, let me go back a little bit. Her nose was constantly running,
Okay.
constantly snot.
Was it clear snot? Or like, did it seem like she was sick with a virus or something?
No, it was the yellow stuff. And I think that's why Dr. Started her on the antibiotics, because he said, I need it to be clear in 2 weeks. And if it's not, you have to call me.
Okay.
So he said it should be clear, and it was not, it was yellow.
Okay.
So we did the antibiotic and her nose cleared up and her snoring was much better, if not gone. However, it didn't fix it long term. So
Sure.
then we kept her on the Flonase, and then I thought, oh, I don't really want to put my little girl on Flonase forever. It even says right on the box, don't use it for more than 2 months. So I took her off of it, and she started to snore again and started to not be as snotty, but definitely wasn't breathing through her nose all the time.
Did you notice that she wasn't breathing through her nose during the day too, or was it just mostly at night?
It was mostly at night.
Okay.
Mostly at night.
Looking back, do you see signs or pictures where she kind of was resting with her lips parted a little bit that you go, oh, maybe she was?
Yeah, so so now that I know, now that's on my radar a lot more, I look back at pictures when she was a little baby, and she does have her lips closed, but I think that she breathes through her mouth, just that little tiny part, Stacy, that you mentioned, just that little parting of the lips. I think that, oh, she is mouth breathing.
Right, because it's important for parents to know that mouth breathing isn't just like a mouth open
Right.
and, drooling. It doesn't have to be anything excessive.
No.
If you're using your mouth even a little bit, it's just right here even,
Yep.
then you're keeping those structures away from themselves where they need to be training the mouth. So you could have seen when she was a baby that it looked perfectly fine. And in all her baby pictures, it's shut, but as she's growing, and then as she's using that pacifier and that tongue is away from her palate,
Mhm.
and then her nasal passages were getting either, the roof of the palate is the floor of the mouth, and that's starting to get a little occluded. And then her mouth is open at night and she's irritating her tonsils and her adenoids. And then maybe she's got a little sinus thing going, then maybe she's got allergies. So then you might not have noticed the mouth breathing until maybe 2 or 3, where it's just a little bit open.
Yeah, right.
So maybe the
Nothing
early
like a
pictures looked
wide,
okay.
yeah, like nothing like a wide open all the time. But yeah, like, and now I catch her, we can get to that later, but all the time, Nora, and we're really working on it now.
Right.
Yeah. She also, well, I'm trying to think of past. So then we went to the ENT, and then I just still wasn't really satisfied with that she's still snoring and still breathing through her mouth probably most of the time. So then we went to see Dr. O'Rourke, and she took measurements of her jaw and the gaps between her teeth, and recommended at that appointment that she would be a good candidate for the orthotropics.
Okay. And when you say orthotropics, and she's a good candidate, what did that entail? What did she describe to you? And I guess I should back up a little bit too. Tell us just a little bit about what the first visit was like with Dr. O'Rourke, like how long it took, and what did they do there, that kind of thing.
Well, you can actually, I don't know if we can post a link to her website probably, but they have like a sleep questionnaire, which we do too, but theirs has all kind of those check boxes like restless when you're sleeping, and snoring and mouth breathing, attention problems during the day, temper tantrums, those kinds of things. And so I initially checked all those and then brought it to the appointment. And Dr. O'Rourke was very, very kind. Her and her assistant are very kind, and know really how to work with children and make them feel comfortable and you feel comfortable. So they take measurements, and I wish I could be a little bit more exact, but they take measurements of the way that her jaw is aligned, and how wide and how open her airway is.
Sure.
And just taught me so much. I mean, I had no idea there should be a significant space between the teeth. I had no idea.
Right. That's really important for parents to know, because that baby teeth need to have space. So if they come in and they're really tight and you think, wow, it looks like their teeth are coming in great. Looks like they're really straight. Right.
No.
We need room. We need gaps in between those teeth to make room for those adult teeth, or else we're going to have a mouth that's too crowded. Yeah.
Which makes total sense.
Right. It makes sense when you break it all down. So about how long did it take at the office?
I would say the first appointment was maybe an hour. It wasn't that long.
Okay, good.
And
so then she decided right there at that first appointment that Nora would be a good candidate for her intervention, which she uses something called a BioBlock, correct?
Yes.
And that's something that Nora has now. And maybe we can show a picture. We'll link some pictures in here, but maybe you can describe to us what that looks like or feels like.
It looks like a retainer. Like if anyone's had braces, what they give you after to keep your teeth aligned. That's how I'm describing it to people. Okay. And you cannot really see it when she smiles unless you are looking for it.
Okay.
So it fits just behind her teeth. She's got one on the top and one on the bottom. And we take it out every day and clean it. And every night we also turn it. So it's expanding her palate and expanding her jaw and ultimately her airway and ultimately reshaping her face.
Now, I know that you and I talked a little bit when you were going to get it. And as a mom, it was a little bit nerve-wracking, right? Like, how do we put it in? Is it going to be painful? How is she going to react? So what are some of the things that you kind of had to talk yourself through as a mom to be able to help Nora? And what did you say?
So I first was concerned, like every parent, about the cost of this, knowing that dental insurance usually doesn't pay all, for everything. But what really hit the nail on the head for me was she took Nora's hand and she goes, look at her hand and look at her face. And she said, look how much more color is in her hand than her face. That's because her airway is narrow and she's not getting enough oxygen. And I just
right.
cue the mom guilt, and I was like, oh my God, because she had a passy, like all the things. And she said, no, like, it's okay. Like, no mom guilt, calm down. She's like, this is across the board. And Karen's podcast is wonderful for anyone that has listened to it, but she goes into, how we start feeding our babies really soft foods and we get them away from chewing on things and we get away from nursing. And so anyways, when she held up Nora's hand, I thought, okay, I need to do this. So for Nora, she loves going to the dentist and she loves doing this kind of thing. So I'm very fortunate that she was actually really excited to get them. And Karen said, let's call them mouth jewelry. So Nora thinks it's fabulous and she was really excited. However, she didn't really know what it was going to be, right? So once we actually got it and we had to put it in every day, she was definitely hesitant, and I was feeling very anxious because, oh my gosh, am I going to do this right? And it has to go in. We have to make sure it fits. What if it falls out? So all those feelings made the first week, difficult. And Karen, the Dr. O'Rourke, said the first 3 days are the trickiest to get her to eat. But I have my cell phone, call me anytime. If it comes out, we can fix it. Like I've met people like wherever, like to fix it, because she believes so strongly in it. And if it does come out, we have to get it back in.
Wow. That's
so
great.
Yeah. And the support of the staff is wonderful. But yeah, those first few days, because it's different. It's different as adults when we get braces or an expander. Like, I don't want to eat, like, so, but what
don't take it out to eat, correct?
You do not take it out to eat. You can take it out to clean it after you eat, but I'm not home with Nora. So I said, we're just going to do it once a day.
Yeah. And she's 4, correct?
She's 4.
Yeah. Okay.
She can take it out, but she can't put it back in. So that's another thing I was really nervous about, is that she's at daycare. What if this falls out? What am I supposed to do?
Right.
So we've been lucky enough that her daycare staff will call me right away if it falls out. And I've trained one of them to put it back in. And Nora's really good about saying, hey, this popped out, instead of hiding it. So I do see the concern of doing it with children. Like I think Karen said that they start as early as 3 for intuition. So, but I can see the concern with someone that little. It might fall out and they might just put it somewhere. Or that.
Yeah, I have a hard time communicating it. So tell us, so it sounds like it was dicey, but you got through it, and now she does a good job with it. And so immediately you started finding, what were the first things that you noticed where you were like, wow, this is making a difference?
Just the look of her face.
Okay, like the
shape of her face, the color, the rosiness in her cheeks, everything was coming up and becoming more round. She didn't have such a narrow face. Her appetite, wake up and want like 2 bowls of Cheerios. They're just insane, like for school. She slept. She's been sleeping much better. She used to get up, I don't think I mentioned this, she used to get up quite frequently, maybe 3 or 4 nights a week, just crying or screaming, and she couldn't tell us what was wrong, just restless, very restless. She's been sleeping so much better. Oh,
good.
Yeah.
And how about her regulation and just how her behavior? And
that's gotten much better too. She's become less like 0 to 60. For sure. And I think she really like she likes her mouth jewelry and likes to show people and likes to like show her friends and other doctors and things that we see. So I think for her, it's like building up her confidence and self-esteem. Like this is something that I take care of, and she understands like every night we have to take care of it. And there might be a couple tricky nights, but really she's very good about it.
Sure. Well, and I think that has a lot to do with how you presented it, Jess,
Mm.
because when you empower her, like, this is something we're going to do, it's going to make you healthy. And, you know, even though you had all the feels, that you still were able to step in. And we talked about this a little bit too, just putting on that face of confidence. This is what we need to do. And this is what we're going to do. And now she's,
Mhm.
you know, she's risen to that because you've given her that confidence as her mom that, you know, this is the right thing to do.
Mhm.
So that's great. I think that's a huge thing.
Yeah, just modeling for them that
Mhm.
this is going to be good and we can do this together. And this is why, and telling Nora and helping her to understand this is why we're doing this, and just taking good care of just her overall oral health, and then just everything that it's doing for her airway and her regulation and her breathing.
Mhm.
Just it's life-changing for her.
Yes, I agree.
Absolutely.
Now, and this means, right, Jess, your understanding is that you're not going to need braces. This isn't something where you get orthotropics and then you get orthodontics, correct?
Correct. So Dr. O'Rourke said typically the treatment is about a year. They expand for anywhere between I think it's 9 months to a year. And then we start to wean off, right? You wear it at night only, or you know, that kind of thing, kind of like a retainer. And then the goal is that everything will be expanded enough, everything will be open so that she will not need braces when
Right.
she loses her teeth. Which
Now
is doing it earlier is
Right.
better.
And the importance of therapy then, and our role here at Family Tree with speech and OT, we're working on body concerns, which I know both of you can speak to. Postural concerns, our head being in line with our body instead of being forward, which is a really common sign where a kid is struggling for air, their head is more forward. Working on what we call oral myofunctional therapy. So I know you're working at home with chewing and straw drinking and getting our lips closed because we need to reset all those patterns. You mentioned reverse swallow earlier. And to parents that don't know what that is, it's a little bit of a forward tongue that's coming forward instead of pushing up and pushing the food back. So this would be an exaggeration, but the tongue coming more forward. It doesn't necessarily even have to cross the teeth. It can just be pushing forward on the teeth. And so that's what I had seen with Nora when she was eating. So correcting those swallow patterns, making sure we get the mouth closed, all of that will be really important to maintain these great changes.
Right. And we do the exercises at home, and even my husband was like, well, why do we have to do this? Because she's got the expander in it. And I was like, this is not it. And this is not just the cure for it. We still have to do the work and really teach her tongue where to go, especially because right now there's something on the roof of her mouth. So her tongue doesn't really know where to go right now. It's different.
Right. Really tricky.
Yeah. But it'll be really cool to see where we're at by the end of this year, and just to see all the changes. I mean, we just can't get over how much we've seen already.
Awesome.
In 3 months.
Yeah.
Now, have you had other people point out any changes to you besides you and your husband?
Yes, her
Grandparents?
grandparents
Okay.
and her aunt and uncle. Yep. Yeah, for sure. Everyone has said about her face looking more full. And my sister has her first sleepovers a lot, and she's like, she doesn't snore anymore. And I was like, I know.
So great. So
And
great.
the ENT, we did go back for one kind of final visit. He said her nasal airway is more open. I can tell that the orthotics
That's
are
great.
making a difference. Yeah. And he discharged us from ENT services. So that's great.
So no Flonase, no tonsillectomy, no nothing, just everything working good and discharged for now.
Yep. Dr. O'Rourke does recommend we use what's called XLEAR, and that is a all natural nasal spray. And she recommended that to keep the airway clear. And that, I mean, it says it's safe enough for 1-year-olds. So we do still do that. But she does not have a runny nose anymore unless she's sick.
Yeah, fantastic. We'll link that down in the show notes too, because I hadn't heard of that product either when you sent it to me. So that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And Nora's great with it. And it's, Dr. O'Rourke says she has used it for 30 years and has her whole family on it. So.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Cool. Is there anything you can think of that we didn't ask that we should have, or anything you want to add? You've been doing this 3 months, right?
3 months.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the tricky parts about like making sure that there's more than one adult that can manage the appliance.
Okay.
It was very stressful at first because my husband didn't go to the appointment, and for those who don't have a partner, it can be tricky if you're not home at bedtime or, you know, whatever. It's just, I feel like that was one thing that I wish I would have been more assertive with at the beginning, because initially she wouldn't let him. Well, mommy was there at the appointment, you weren't there, you know.
Yeah.
But now we've trained him, he can do it. But that was
anymore.
Yeah, no. She's still kind of hesitant to eat things like carrots. Dr. O said the only thing she cannot eat is like gummy stuff. So,
Okay.
Which isn't really a big deal when it's like candy.
Right.
But yeah, she's like, well, I can't eat carrots anymore. They'll break my mouth jewelry. So, but
she's got some game in there, that Nora.
Yeah. So then so there's really nothing that she's complained about consistently eating that would,
Okay.
you know, it's fallen out a couple of times at daycare. I think I mentioned that, and they've been able to pop it back in. And Dr. O'Rourke's office is wonderful about getting her in if I don't feel like it's fitting right.
Okay.
And they really work quickly to get us in, so we don't have to wait.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Sounds great. I'm super excited for her progress.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Me too, sweet girl. Yeah.
I know. Well, we're going to check in with you again, maybe towards the end of treatment even, and just kind of keep everything. We're going to show some pictures and let everybody follow Nora's journey, if you don't mind, so that our families can use you as a reference and a resource and feel good about it.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything you want to ask, Terri?
No, I think we touched on it all.
Okay. I think so too. All right. Well, as always, thanks for listening. If you have any questions, you can always email us, office@familytreetherapies.com. If you want to ask Jess a question for the next podcast, we'd be happy to take that question and answer it. And we appreciate your time, JC. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.